Hey everyone, Happy New Year, and we want to say Happy New Year and welcome to the very first Radiotopia Presents of 2024. It's a series that we are truly excited about. It's called Shocking, Heartbreaking, Transformative. Now, this is from documentarian Jess Shane, who put out an open call on Craigslist and then worked with 4 strangers to explore the standard rules that documentarians and journalists use to tell their subject stories. So the series gets into all sorts of questions about what happens when people's real lives are collected, edited, and consumed. The show pulls back the curtain on what goes on behind the scenes of your favorite nonfiction shows. And then it turns in on itself and some really interesting twists and turns along the way in the making of the show. I've gotten to know Jess a little bit over the making of this show. Every time I chat with her, there's a new wrinkle to this story. It is really incredible. So go check out the new Radiotopia Presents series, Shocking, Heartbreaking, Transformative. It is out now on your favorite podcast platform. Hello and welcome to This Day in Esoteric Political History from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. This day, April 23rd, 1994, a founding father of shock-jock radio, Howard Stern, becomes the Libertarian nominee for New York governor. New York governor, of course, an office that has vaulted 4 men to the presidency. Howard Stern was not one of them. He ultimately dropped out after refusing to disclose his financial records, after polls showed him in the single digits, though he, of course, claimed that his numbers were higher. So, yeah, lots to discuss here. We're joined, as always, by Nicole Hemmer of Columbia. Hello, Nikki.
Hello, Jody.
And Alexis Coe is back, author of You Never Forget Your First, a book about George Washington. So today's topic, obviously very much in her wheelhouse. Hello, Alexis. Thanks for doing this.
Hi. Yes, I'm very excited about this topic I have immense expertise about.
No, I like this. We're going to have historians on from time to time. And obviously, Nikki has her area of expertise, and I have my, consistent area of unexpertise across all the eras. But, I like being put in positions to draw connections. So we'll see if you can tie this to your research. But, Nikki, let's start a little bit with Howard Stern himself and his platform. He had a platform, and I'm making air quotes here, but it was a platform. He had some reasons for running. You want to lay those out and talk about whether they mattered?
Yeah, look, Howard Stern had a plan for 3 things. He wanted to reinstate the death penalty, which was a big deal in what was seen as crime-ridden New York at the time, improving toll collection, and requiring road construction crews to work at night just to get a little bit more of that infrastructure done. And then he was like, you do all that, and I'm done. I'll just hand it over to the lieutenant governor and we can move on from there.
Do either of you wish that more politicians would do this and just say, you know what, I really care about only 1 or 2 things and I'm just going to get in and be done with that and then move on?
I mean, it's worked disastrously well. I know that James K. Polk, our 11th president, we're all tired of talking about him.
Yes, it's true.
But he is arguably our most successful president because he came in with 4 goals and he accomplished them all. And they weren't small goals. They were huge. One was to cut tariffs, check, to reestablish an independent U.S. Treasury, huge deal. It gets more and more serious. Secure the Oregon Territory and acquire California and New Mexico from Mexico. So it was a part of Mexico at the time. And Texas was its own country. And he comes in and he's like, 4 years, impossible goals. Everyone's like, sure. And then he accomplishes them all. He starts a war. But most people are pretty cool with it, except for Lincoln, actually. Early Lincoln, young Lincoln, not good with it.
Man, Howard Stern getting compared to James K. Polk, it's not one you hear that often, but it does tell us something about just whether you should have very narrow agendas because you're going to accomplish 1 or 2 things anyway, so you might as well just narrow it down to that. So I do want to talk a little bit about what Stern represents in addition to some of the sort of silliness of his candidacy. But Nikki, you've written so much about modern conservative movements, and I think it's impossible to look at modern conservative movements and not think of the role of huge media players in that. And so I think we talk a lot about, the early 90s and we talk a lot about Rush Limbaugh. Where does Howard Stern fit into that ecosystem?
So Howard Stern fits pretty firmly into that ecosystem in a sense. It's this era of the shock-jock, and Rush Limbaugh's big innovation was to make the shock-jock political and to have the shock be all about politics. With Howard Stern, he was much more of an entertainment guy, but then he goes into politics. And so what you see is the thinning or maybe even the erasure of the walls between entertainment and politics. And just as we think about Rush Limbaugh as being part of that erasure, I think Howard Stern even more so is because, he wasn't in any way a political figure and emerges as a candidate for governor.
Alexis, can we talk a little bit about parties here? Because, we described his platform and it doesn't strike me as inherently libertarian. Is this just a case of a politician finding the home that will take them? And how often do we see that throughout political history?
I think that Trump identified as a Democrat before, at least for some of his life.
You ask that so innocently. He definitely did. He absolutely did.
Because I forgot, I willfully forgot that Howard Stern had been a candidate for any office, besides filling out a lease agreement. And I was reminded of this, and my initial thought was like, no way, he couldn't have. And then I thought, well, I would have said that about Trump.
Yeah. Or Jesse Ventura, or, all sorts of people. Yeah.
Schwarzenegger. I remember I grew up in California, and I remember thinking, no way. And then he was, in fact, governor. And it's amazing, but I think celebrities or people who are in the business of shocking people in particular, they say outlandish or offensive things in order to garner ratings and attention, which, this is what Howard Stern is known for. I would say they're pretty malleable when it comes to parties.
Pretty malleable at a moment when parties, which you study coming into being, are on their way out in a lot of ways. Parties just aren't as powerful as they used to be by the 1990s. And so somebody like Howard Stern can run. Somebody like Donald Trump, who's running in the Reform Party at the time, can run because they don't need a party to A, fund their campaigns, or B, to lift them up as potential candidates.
And certainly this is a statewide election, so I think even in that case, parties tend to be a little more malleable at times. One thing, it's just amazing to realize, but Stern was asked to disclose his finances and he refused. And it was part of how it all fell apart for him. The parallels to Trump there are obvious, but I don't know, this is maybe a naive question, but Nikki, why do these people not want to disclose their finances?
Well, sometimes it's because they make a lot more money than people think, and sometimes it's because they make a lot less. They'd have to disclose to a certain extent how much they pay in taxes, whether they're paying their taxes. Are they giving to charitable organizations? Which charitable organizations are they giving to? There's a lot that's packed into our financial records, but I think in particular, the ability of financial records to expose how little a person is worth can sometimes be a big deterrent to disclosing those.
But Stern is making real money at this point. This would have been a huge pay cut for him, right, to become governor of New York?
Yeah, this is why people like Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and these kind of folks, yes, they probably have skeletons in their closet as well, but this is why they don't run for office. They're making millions and millions and millions of dollars a year, and the governorship doesn't pay anywhere near that. The presidency doesn't pay anywhere near that.
Oh, but the brand potential, as we've learned, is huge.
I think that's a really key thing, is that in many ways, these are stunt candidacies. And in many ways, our current president ran as a stunt candidacy just to kind of popularize themselves and get more fame and those kinds of things. And sometimes they accidentally win.
No, it's the dog that catches the fire truck, for sure. And Stern managed to stop before he caught it.
Yeah, but Nicole, do you think I agree with you to a certain extent. It's about how much money they have, maybe when it comes to someone like Howard Stern. With Trump, I don't think it's about the dollar number that we would see in his bank account. The other thing that I think that might actually break him is if people saw that he didn't pay taxes.
Well, I think that he could survive that. I think that there are probably levels of corruption in his taxes that would be exposed, particularly with other organizations that he's involved with. And so given that even the Trump charity was under investigation at the time that he was running, I think that there are a lot worse things in there than zero taxes.
Oh, exciting.
I think we'll have a chance to talk about some of these things on future episodes for sure. We should start to wrap up, but one thing I think that this story brings up is the governor of New York, as we're seeing, pretty important job and can be pretty prominent. So these stunt candidacies sometimes intersect with actually very important jobs. But also, the echoes of history. Nikki was running against a Cuomo.
Yes, he was running against Mario Cuomo. We have a long history of political dynasties here in New York, and with the Cuomo brothers in the news, both on CNN and as the governor of New York now, Mario was in office at the time. And we should say that in 1994, Cuomo loses in a major upset to George Pataki. So I think that, did Stern have anything to do with that? Probably not. Stern probably ran because he scented the blood in the water. Cuomo at the time had approval ratings down in the 40s, but it definitely was a memorable election.
Yeah, Stern wasn't even on the ballot at that point, and the Libertarian candidate ended up getting 0.18% of the vote. So I don't know if we can tell a sort of spoiler story in here, though who knows, maybe if Stern does reveal his finances and stays on the ballot, maybe he does split the pro-death penalty vote with Pataki just enough to keep Cuomo in office. I don't know. There's a whole alternate history here. But anyway, that brings us to the end of what I would say is our most esoteric conversation so far. So Nikki Hemmer, thank you as always. And Alexis Coe, thanks to you. So other than your new book, anything else people should check out of yours?
No, that's it for now.
Alexis's book is called You Never Forget Your First. It's about George Washington. It's great. You should order it now from your favorite independent bookstore. This Day in Esoteric Political History is a proud member of Radiotopia from PRX. You can find lots more about the show, including how to suggest topics at thisdaypod.com. And keep those ratings and reviews coming. They really do mean a lot. And keep sending us emails about the show. Our researcher and producer is Jacob Feldman. The next episode will be a bit of a heavier one. Nikki and I will talk about the moment during World War II when New York went dark, a collective sacrifice with lots of echoes to the city's current struggles. That's next time. My name is Jody Avirgan. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Anybody ask a question, be happy to answer, then I have to get inside and hopefully take the nomination on the first ballot. Yes?
How are you going to make it on a governor's salary?
Oh, I'm not going to make it on a governor's salary. As a matter of fact, I couldn't live on that for 2 minutes. I don't even want a salary when I become governor. I'll take the governor's salary and I'll give it to Robin.
Oh, thank you!
Howard, when you become governor, are there any chances of putting the first execution on pay-per-view?
Oh, there is nothing wrong with doing business on pay-per-view, even if it is an execution. Yes, that can be looked into.
Radiotopia.